In this video, I wanted to take some time to talk about church safety and security. This will also apply to any other civic organization, even though the focus of this presentation is on church safety and security. This is basically going to be something to give you some topics of discussion amongst yourselves, amongst your congregation, and decide for yourself some of the steps that you may want to take to help ensure the safety and security of all your members. Some of the things that we're going to look at in this video are some dangers that we face. We're going to talk about developing a plan, creating a safety team, and then we're also going to talk about some recommended training for the folks on your safety team. Now, the first thing that I want to mention, particularly to those in the Christian community, is that preparation is not a lack of faith. Throughout the Bible, we see multiple examples of God's people preparing for various things. You can see a few things here on your screen, a couple of verses from the book of Proverbs, as well as the parable of the 10 virgins from the New Testament. In both of these examples, these folks were prepared for the things that they were going to be facing in the near future. We should not draw back and see preparedness as a lack of faith, because it is not. It is an example of faith. You know, it is something that works along in conjunction with our faith. Just as we see in Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the foolish virgins, the wise and the foolish virgins. Half of them made preparations and half of them did not. And we see that the Lord actually commended those who made preparations. One of the things that we need to talk about is developing a plan. There are several factors that you're going to want to consider based on where you live, as well as the type of disasters that you could face. Again, we need to develop a plan to deal with medical emergencies, severe weather emergencies, fire, as well as violent attacks. These are just a few examples of things that can happen. Medical emergencies happen every day in various parts of our communities. I'm sure that most of you all will hear on a regular basis the ambulance driving down the street, sirens running, and that is a perfect example of how fast a medical emergency can happen. Some of the common medical emergencies that people can face: heart attacks, strokes, various injuries, and a whole host of other things. These are things which we need to prepare for, because even in the church house, medical emergencies can and have happened. Fire and smoke emergencies. Fires happen. Just like everything else, things happen within buildings, smoke, fire, and some of the steps that we need to take to protect ourselves is, of course, making sure that we have an adequate notification system to be able to get people out. We need to be able to call 911. We need to have a fire extinguisher or other means of extinguishing the fire if at all possible. And if not, we need to be able to get emergency responders there to help to resolve that situation. Severe weather. I'm sure that if any of you guys will think back, you have certainly seen in the news where tornadoes or other severe weather patterns have came across various communities, and there's always a picture of a church that has been destroyed, along with a lot of other buildings. Sometimes there's a picture of the church being the only standing building left in the community. It just really depends. None of us know what can happen in a situation like this. But it is something that we should prepare for, and it can very easily happen during a service. Does your church have a tornado shelter? Do the folks within your congregation know what to do in the event of something like this happening. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, violent attacks are nothing that is not seen is something that's not seen is going to happen. It's a sad reality that we do hear tragic stories in the news about attacks on churches. There's many places in our communities, in our country, that have never seen a violent attack outside of the church house. There's been small communities where the only attack that has happened has been within the church. And that is a real tragedy. The common thing that we hear about whenever we talk about a violent attack or a mass shooting, an active shooter threat, is run, hide, and fight. Get out of that situation. Try to hide yourself from where the attacker is, turning off your cell phone to where you won't give them any kind of a notification of where you are. And as a last resort, fight. But these may sound easy when we first discuss them, but they come with some pretty heavy limitations. Some of the limitations when it involves a run, hide, fight, active shooter situation is how most people are going to react. The physiological effects, the psychological effects of fear, of the noises. People that are unprepared for such an event typically will just shut down. On the right of the screen, you can see a screenshot from a security camera of a church shooting in Texas. Notice that a significant number of the folks in the pews, they may be ducking down, but for the most part, they're just sitting there. They're not trying to run. They're not trying to get out of there. In fact, if you watch the overall video footage, very few of the folks did. Most of them simply laid down and waited for something to happen. Fortunately for this church, they had a security team. And on that team, they had armed and trained members who were able to stop that threat. It is unfortunate that a couple of people did lose their life. However, because their church was ready, they had the team, they had the tools, and they had the willingness to protect themselves. They were able to stop the attacker before he could harm anyone else. There are serious effects, psychological and physical effects, of the stresses of being in a situation like this. As someone that has reviewed countless active shooter videos, has spent years studying the effects of these type of situations, it is unfortunate that most people will just basically become paralyzed with fear and lay down and wait to be attacked. That's something that we have got to work to overcome. Some of the things that we can do is, of course, develop a safety team. A team of people who have the skills and the willingness to respond to each of the emergencies that we'd mentioned, as well as any others that could arise. We need people with the mindset of a sheepdog. Typically, a mindset is your established attitudes towards something. That is the basic definition of a mindset. The sheepdog mindset is very simple. There are wolves and there are sheep, and you are the sheepdog. You are there to guard the flock. You are to help keep them safe from threats, from the dangers that can cause them harm, from the wolves that would devour them if given the opportunity. The psychology of a sheepdog, they are not the shepherd. They are part of the flock. They're part of the herd. They are the folks that are in there with the congregation, with the sheep, with the herd, with the flock, that are there simply to protect, to guide, to help keep the flock safe. They're always alert to their environment, and again, they have the heart of a protector. Some of the people that you will want to avoid adding to your safety team: prideful people. Pride is the first disqualifier. People who are proud, who wants everyone to pay attention to them, Those are people that you do not want on your safety team. You want people who have a heart of a servant. You want people that are going to be willing to help others. You do not want people who are looking for a fight. Again, this is a church. You want people who are going to be welcoming to strangers, because we've got to remember the ultimate role and the ultimate responsibility of what the church's purpose is. People who are insecure or weak, again, these are not people that you're going to want on your safety team. If they are intimidated by bad situations, if they are not capable of handling the stresses of situations that can arise, they do not need to be on that team where they're trying to work to save the lives of others. They need to be decisive, not indecisive. Make the decision, follow through. And of course, they must have the necessary skills. While people can be trained, if they have a willingness to learn, again, we need people in the place that have the skills, that can do what is necessary to protect the people within the church or other civic group. Some of the safety team member responsibilities are, of course, being able to manage lockdowns, shelter-in-place procedures, intervention procedures, and just a whole host of various situations that could arise. They need to know the locations of all of the tornado shelters, all of the first aid equipment or anything else like that that you may have in your church. Those are things that each of the safety response team members should know. They should also be able to communicate and work as a team, not simply working individually, but working as a team to where they can help better facilitate control of any situation that may arise. Medical response team members. These are typically people who have some type of a background in first aid, in some type of medical ability, whether it's providing CPR, whether it is treating people that have been injured. Many of our congregations have medical professionals in them. They would be a great asset to a medical response team. If they are willing, if they are able to help, those could be some of the best folks added as medical response team members. Every team member, whether they are a safety team member, medical team member, all team members should know the street address of the church. The very simple reason is if you call 911, the first thing they're going to ask you is the address. They need to know where first responders need to be to help you in the event of something happening. If you do not know the basic address of your church, then I strongly suggest that you memorize it. Learn it by heart. That way, if you are forced to call 911 for any reason, whether it is something as simple as a medical emergency, which, again, is never a simple thing, or if it is something as drastic as an active shooter situation, you still need to know the address of the church to where you can get that address into the hands of first responders to where they can get to you and render help. Each of the team members should also know where all of the exits for the building are. In the event that there needs to be an evacuation in case of a fire, if people are in different locations of the building, all of them need to be able to be gotten out. Your safety response team members need to know how to get those people out of that building as quickly as possible. And I wanted to take some time also to mention the psychology of a criminal, because unfortunately, we live in a dangerous world. Typically, criminals are extremely selfish. They have a lack of conscience or sense of mercy. Niceness is seen as weakness to them. They are also very manipulative. They can blend in well and appear to be very innocent. It's also important to note that they are always seeking an opportunity to benefit themselves and without regard to others. Some of the warning signs I've got listed here on the screen. I felt that this photo was very appropriate because many of these folks can be just wolves in sheep's clothing. If they are someone that are always threatening people, constantly starting or participating in fights, even their language, and just a whole list of things. And there could be quite a few others added as well. But be aware of these. Be aware of these people and be cautious of them. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is training. And again, the entire purpose of this video is to give you some things to think about, to give you a direction that you may want to go with your church or your civic organization, and to give you some ideas of things that you should do. Again, areas of training, first aid, top of the list. Chances are there's a greater risk of someone having a medical emergency in your congregation than anything else. CPR, how to stop a bleed, basic life safety, life-saving procedures are a skill that you need on your team. There are classes all over the country. From first responders, training people in CPR and first aid, to more advanced medical intervention. A simple fire extinguisher training, having a fire extinguisher within your facility, having a first aid kit within your facility. Those are all essential things. People who are skilled in de-escalation. If you have someone that is in your midst that is confrontational, there again, having someone that can help de-escalate that situation, that has the skills, the verbal skills to pull that down, to de-escalate that situation, is a great tool. And that's why you don't want someone on your team that is looking for a fight. You want someone who can de-escalate a situation. And of course, in the event that it cannot be de-escalated, you need people that can intervene physically if necessary. This photo is from a concealed carry class that I conducted a while back, one of many that I've had over the years. But at the same time, this is just one element. Again, I strongly recommend that folks go and learn first aid, learn about fire extinguishers and how to use them, and just be prepared. You need to arm yourself with knowledge and with skill. As we can see in the Gospel of Luke, and he said unto them, When I send you without purse and scrip and shoes, lack ye anything? And they said, Nothing. Then said he unto them, But now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. And that is because the Lord at that time knew that they were going to need to protect themselves. They were going to need to prepare for the things that they would face. And that is true with the church still to this day. We need to be willing to prepare for the things that we could face. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the book of Ephesians, See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the times, because the days are evil. We are to arm ourselves with knowledge and with skill. That's the headline of this. We are to be the watchmen on the wall. We are to be the ones that can step up and help protect those within. Guys, again, I hope that this is something that just gets you thinking about what you should do to help make your house of worship a little more safe, a little more secure. We all know the dangers we face, and even within the church, we see some tragedies happen. And everything that we can do to better prepare ourselves and the people within the congregation, the better off we're going to be. The more people we will be able to help. Guys, hope you liked the video. Be sure to share this video. Let's get this information out there. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.